The story begins in a hospital where a man named Valmiki was seen coming to the hospital because his wife was about to give birth. He was an assistant of a millionaire named Ramachandra, whose wife coincidentally was in the same hospital and about to give birth too. Soon, Valmiki's child was finally born. The nurse told him that it was a boy. He was very happy to hear that. At the same time, Yasoda also gave birth to a boy, but when the nurse named Solokana finished cleaning the baby and was going to put him back, she realized that the baby wasn't moving at all and thought that the baby was dead. Iran was about to inform Ramachandra, but Valmiki was seen using the telephone. She then asked Valmiki for the phone and said she wanted to inform Ramachandra about his baby's condition. Hearing that, Valmiki immediately told her that he was friends with Ramachandra and that he was able to get a better life thanks to him. He then decided to replace his newborn baby with Ramachandra's to repay his kindness. Solokana refused the idea at first, but Valmiki managed to convince her. Solokana ran to get Valmiki's baby and immediately went to Yasoda's room to replace the baby. She saw Yasoda's face and felt guilty, but then immediately left. When she was walking with Valmiki to his wife's room to put the baby, a deafening thunder struck and suddenly woke the baby she was holding. Seeing the baby was okay, Solokana intended to replace the baby, but Valmiki, who had evil intentions from the start, then snatched the baby from Solokana. It was then revealed that Valmiki and Ramachandra were close friends. Valmiki was jealous because Ramachandra became rich after getting married to Yasoda, the daughter of the company owner they both used to work. That's why Valmiki wanted his child to be able to enjoy a luxurious life. Valmiki pushed Solokana to snatch the baby, but accidentally made her fall from the second floor and fell headfirst to the ground. Blood came out of her head and she wasn't moving at all. On the other hand, Valmiki's one leg suddenly cramped, and since then, he had been limping on one leg. The next day, both Valmiki and Ramachandra went home with their babies. The big secret that last night was only known by Valmiki and Solokana was never found out. Ramachandra named his child a very good name, namely Raj Manohar, while Valmiki named his child a name that many poor people in India use, Bantu. Bantu was a smart boy. He always tried to make Valmiki proud by being a very smart child. His grades were very good, but even with all that, this didn't make Valmiki proud of him. On the contrary, he always insulted him. 20 years had passed. Bantu and Raj had become an adult. Different from Bantu with his poor life, Raj's life was full of luxury and he studied abroad, until one day he returned home. The busiest one to welcome Raj home was not his parents, but Valmiki. He even asked Bantu to buy something to welcome Raj. It turned out that Raj returned after he had dropped out of college. After Bantu brought the present his father asked for, he was immediately chased out of the place by Valmiki, while saying that a loser like him was not supposed to be there. The next day, Bantu was getting ready for a job interview at a company, but he was told by Valmiki to take his sister. He did that so that Valmiki would be late to the interview and lose the position, but even so, Bantu still obeyed what his father told him. He then saw her sister bothered by some thugs who took her scarf, but he didn't do anything about it. His sister told him that as a big brother, he should be mad at the thugs and defend his sister. Hearing that, Bantu immediately went to meet the thugs and fought them all to get back the scarf. After dropping off his sister, Bantu went to attend an interview at a travel agency company. The HR asked his reason for wanting to work at the company. Bantu, who was very honest and intelligent, told the man everything about his life for the past 25 years, that he lived with a cold-hearted father who didn't like him at all and always insulted him. He even asked Bantu to give his scholarship to his sister by saying that he didn't deserve the scholarship. The HR was moved when he heard the story and decided to hire him. At the elevator, Bantu met a very beautiful woman named Amelia. He was unable to keep his eyes off the woman's sexy thigh. Suddenly, Amelia asked if Bantu had ever met with his boss. Bantu then said that he hadn't been able to meet the boss because he was new to the place. Bantu then told his friends about the woman he met at the elevator and how surprised he was when he found out that Amelia was his boss. But even so, when he was summoned to Amelia's office, he still couldn't keep his eyes off her thigh. On the other hand, Valmiki looked at Solokana in the hospital. Her condition was very worrying and was still in a coma. Valmiki wanted to make sure and saw her condition because he was worried that the secret he had been keeping all this time would be leaked if she woke up from her coma. At the office, Amelia asked Bantu to look in her eyes, but he was only fixated on her thigh. She then put a book on Bantu's head so that he could see straight, but when he looked at Amelia's eyes, he suddenly fell in love with her. Somewhere else at a port, a businessman named Apala Naidu, a cunning and cruel businessman, was seen. He had a son named Padathali. That day, he intended to meet with Ramachandra, the owner of ARK Company, to offer a loan because they knew that ARK was experiencing a financial crisis for the exchange of half the shares of the company. Meanwhile, Ananth, Ramachandra's father-in-law and the owner of the company, asked his grandson Raj to meet Padathali and refused their offer. With a heavy heart, Raj was forced to carry out the duties of his grandfather. Knowing his son was not reliable enough to do the job, Ramachandra instructed everything he had to do while monitoring him from the monitor, but this didn't make Raj understand his job. He instead remained silent and didn't say a word. Ramachandra was annoyed and finally refused the offer through the monitor and chased Padathali away from his office. On the other hand, Bantu and Amelia had a meeting with a man named Sudharsanam who asked Amelia to work with him. He said that he would invest a lot of money as long as he was given the company. He threatened to destroy the company if Amelia refused. Amelia herself didn't want to give up her company, but on the other hand, he was afraid of the threat. It turned out that Ramachandra was in that place hearing the meeting. He said that the young generation was losing their courage to say no, but suddenly he was surprised by Bantu who firmly refused the offer. He was about to be beaten by Sudharsanam's subordinates, but he was not a match against them. He beat them in seconds and made Ramachandra and Amelia amazed by his courage. When Ramachandra returned home, he told Ananth that he was very amazed by Bantu and Amelia and compared them to a Raj. He also said that Raj couldn't lead the company with his attitude. Yasoda was very offended to hear that. Ananth suddenly suggested Ramachandra asks Amelia to join their company. He even said that it would be better to set her up with Raj. Yasoda and Ramachandra agreed to the idea. The next day, Amelia and her parents were invited by Ramachandra's family to meet. They were welcomed and treated very warmly. Suddenly, Raj gave Amelia a box of jewelry as a form of proposal. He was forced to do this even though he loved someone else, Nandini, his aunt's daughter. Suddenly, Bantu showed up and accidentally saw what had happened. This made him very sad and disappointed. After that, Bantu and Amelia were called by the police to be questioned after the incident with Sudharsanam. He told everything honestly as it was, but the inspector didn't believe in him, and since there was no strong evidence, the inspector released him eventually. When they left the room, Amelia scolded Bantu for being too honest. Bantu then answered that honesty was the best thing to do. In fact, he also said that Amelia would be better off being honest with Raj by saying that she didn't accept the proposal and asked to cancel it. She was amazed by Bantu's straightforwardness and realized that she actually liked him. On the other hand, Ramachandra was in his office when he was visited by Appalanaidu. He went there to revenge on his son after turning down the offer. He suddenly stabbed Ramachandra's chest with his umbrella and then left. He also locked all exit access so that Ramachandra couldn't be saved. At that time, Amelia and Bantu, who were going to meet Ramachandra to cancel her arranged marriage, couldn't find him in the office, but when Bantu looked behind the desk, he found Ramachandra lying helplessly with blood on his chest. He immediately took him to the hospital after managing to exit the locked building. When they arrived at the hospital, when Ramachandra was brought by the nurses, Bantu accidentally met with Sulokana. She then asked if Bantu was the son of Ramachandra, but Bantu said that he was the son of Valmiki, who at that time was seen with Ananth. Sulokana then confirmed to Bantu that Valmiki was not his father and said that his real father was Ramachandra. Bantu didn't take it too seriously and thought that she was making up the story, but then Sulokana told him the incident 25 years ago. At that time, Valmiki replaced Bantu with Raj. Hearing this, Bantu fell silent because he was very shocked and couldn't say anything. He could only peek at Ramachandra, who was being operated on. Shortly after, Yasoda came and thanked Bantu for helping Ramachandra. Bantu really wanted to hug his mother, but he couldn't. On the other hand, Anna showed up with Valmiki. Bantu then left with Valmiki, but before that, they saw Sulokana, who had passed away. Bantu then asked if Valmiki knew her, but Valmiki denied if he knew her. Bantu was furious and slapped him hard. He was fed up with his behavior towards him all this time. On the way home, Valmiki stopped his bike and asked why Bantu dared to slap him. Bantu answered that he already knew everything. He also knew that Valmiki was not his biological father. Valmiki then told the Bantu that he should not trust the nurse who had been in a coma for 25 years. Turned out it was Bantu's way to provoke him, and he finally told him the truth. Bantu was very disappointed with him because he made his life miserable and always insulted him, and for that reason, Bantu refused to call him father again. After the incident, Bantu was finally freed from Valmiki's torture. Valmiki begged so that Bantu could keep the secret, because if it was revealed, Raj would immediately be kicked out of the house and he would be fired. Bantu, with his kind heart, decided not to reveal the secret because he also felt sorry for Raj, knowing how devastated he would be if he found out about it. Bantu also didn't want to separate Raj from his mother, who had cared for and raised him for years. He also couldn't possibly part from the woman who had always cared for him wholeheartedly. The next day, when Bantu was going to visit Ramachandra's house, he was blocked by Valmiki, but he had another way to meet his father, namely by using Ramachandra's personal doctor. Before carrying out a routine health check, he was informed that his child was kidnapped. Bantu pretended to kidnap his child and asked him to tell Ramachandra that the only way for him to recover was by being surrounded by the person he loved and those who had helped him. Upon hearing that, Ananth ordered Valmiki to call Bantu so he could come to his house. The plan was successful. Not long after that, Bantu came and met Ananth. Bantu was very happy to see his grandfather. Ananth thanked Bantu and then offered to work for him and would pay him very highly. Hearing this, Bantu was very happy and agreed. Then Bantu told Ananth to report what happened to Ramachandra to the police station. Ananth said that he had reported the incident, but there was no response at all from the police. Bantu then invited Ananth to meet Appalanaidu at the port. When they arrived at the port, Ananth received very rough treatment. He was pushed by Padathali until he fell. Bantu was furious to see that and beat everyone who tried to attack him easily. They then found Padathali, and Bantu said that he came for revenge by beating all his subordinates, just like what Apollinaidu had done to Ramachandra. Bantu insulted Pedithali by saying that he couldn't do anything without his father. When Bantu and Ananth were going home, they met with Apollinaidu and told him to never mess with the Arakay company again. He also said that he knew that he was the one who had stabbed Ramachandra. After telling him all that, they left. The next day, the inspector visited Ramachandra's house and intended to provide a security escort to him. But when he met Bantu, Bantu told him not to worry about Ramachandra as long as he was by his side. Knowing Bantu's ability to fight, he was sure that Bantu would be able to help Ramachandra. Bantu told Ramachandra about the inspector. Ramachandra then said that the worst problem was not from the outside but from the inside, namely his own family. When experiencing difficulties, all he needed was family, but his own children couldn't be relied on. His brother-in-law was the same, while his wife was indifferent to him. Hearing this, Bantu felt very sad about the situation of his family. Then Bantu spoke to Ananth. Ananth told Bantu that for 7 years, Ramachandra and Yasoda's relationship was not going well. After hearing this story, Bantu understood how tormented Ramachandra was all this time. The next day, when Ananth saw the company's expenses, he was very surprised because the expenses were too much, so he asked Bantu what really happened. Bantu then said that his son Kashiram was corrupt. Hearing this, Ananth was very shocked. Yasoda then asked Bantu all the information he knew and revealed that Kashiram had been using the company's money to gamble, causing this company to continue to suffer losses. Bantu also used that time to harmonize the relationship between his father and mother. Bantu said that all this time Yasoda and Ramachandra didn't get along because of a mistake 7 years ago, when Ramachandra had an affair with his secretary. Ramachandra, who regretted his actions, had tried to atone for his mistake by improving himself so he could improve his family relationship, but after hearing Bantu bringing up his past, he slapped Bantu. Bantu said that the relationship built on lies would not last long. However, a relationship built on truth will definitely be long-lasting. He then left. Ramachandra and Yasoda were left thinking of it and finally reconciled. Ananth then called Bantu and he said that his father and mother were getting along again. Hearing this made Bantu very happy. On the other hand, Kashiram had an evil plan. He had contacted Pedithali and said that he could persuade Ramachandra to sell half of his company's shares with one condition, namely that he had to get a position in the company. The next day, Pedithali came to meet Raj in his office. Meanwhile, Ramachandra was very worried because he knew that his son was not reliable. There's nothing he could do. He intended to attend the company meeting because he didn't want the company to fall into the hands of the wrong person, but Ananth and Yasoda forbade him, remembering his condition was not fully recovered yet. Ananth then called Bantu and asked for his help to thwart Pedithali's plan to take over the company. Without thinking twice, Bantu went to the board of directors meeting to represent Ananth as the company owner. At the meeting, Bantu immediately tore the letter of agreement in front of Pedithali and said that his company would never be sold and then left the meeting room. Thanks to Bantu, he was able to save the company. Ramachandra was very happy and thought that Bantu was very reliable. However, Yasoda accidentally saw Bantu and Amulia together. She was very disappointed and immediately told her family what had happened. Hearing this, Valmiki, who wanted to destroy Bantu's life, was excited with the chance and then slapped Bantu and dragged him out of Ramachandra's house. Bantu finally told Amulia the truth. He said that Bantu was Ramachandra's biological child, and this of course made Amulia very surprised. Not long after that, Ramachandra received news that Nandini had been kidnapped by Pedithali, who threatened to kill her if they didn't sign the letter of agreement to sell the company. This of course made Ramachandra's family very confused. Didn't want anything to happen to Nandini. Ramachandra and Yasoda finally signed the letter and agreed to sell the company. This made Kashiram realize and regret his mistake. Raj, who loved Nandini, then intended to give the letter of agreement, but Valmiki forbade it, which made Raj angry. Valmiki, who was worried about his child with a heavy heart, and called for Bantu's help, but Bantu refused to help Raj and Nandini because he no longer had any relationship with their family. When Raj arrived at Pedithali's house, he found that everyone had been beaten by Bantu, and that Nandini had been saved. Bantu managed to find Apollinaidu and immediately stabbed him right in the chest. Soon, Raj found him and immediately brought him to the hospital. Meanwhile, Bantu went back to Ramachandra's house with Nandini. He then said that he pretended not to care about Ramachandra's family. Didn't want any more problems for the family, Bantu asked Valmiki to leave, but when they were about to leave, Ananth asked if Valmiki had something to say. Valmiki suddenly apologized if Bantu had done something wrong to the family, but suddenly, Ananth slapped him hard. He said that he already found out the truth, that Bantu was his grandson and the heir to his company. This confession was really surprising. Turned out, Ananth had found out when he was in the hospital. He heard what Solokana about Bantu being his real grandson. Bantu then said that the purpose of his coming to the house was nothing more than just wanting to see his parents happy. Ramachandra was very touched and proud of Bantu. That was the first time Bantu called Ramachandra as a father. Ramachandra intended to tell Yasoda, but Bantu refused because he didn't want to separate Yasoda and Raj, whom she had raised all this time, and when Yasoda came, all the secrets were closed. Yasoda hugged Bantu and expressed her gratitude to Bantu for saving Nandini. Finally, Bantu was able to feel the warm hug from his biological mother. To repay Bantu for his kindness, Yasoda gave half of the company to Bantu. At first, Bantu refused, but Yasoda kept convincing him to sign the letter. Yasoda then asked Valmiki to educate Raj like he had educated Bantu, so that in the future, Raj could become a good man like Bantu. Finally, Raj lived with Valmiki, who was actually his biological father. He lived very happy because he could be free to do whatever he liked, unlike Valmiki, who looked very frustrated. In the end, Bantu married Amelia and his life changed drastically. He lived happily with a luxurious life and abundant wealth.